Hell, it has no shape. Not really. It's a state so far away from understanding that it can be anything or nothing. For ages unchanged, or going from ice-encrusted tundra where frostbite is a constant companion to blazing desert heat where every drop of water evaporates in a heartbeat. Maybe it is true what some priests say. Hell is not a place of devils or pitchforks. It's just a place furthest away from God's love. This hell, or this version of hell, is a lava-filled inferno. The air flickers in the heat, seeming to almost sear the skin. The smell of sulfur, acid gases and rotten eggs seem to penetrate every fraction of this place. Ruins, medieval in appearances, dot the landscapes. Instruments of torture still inside. Broken windows like long dead eyes staring accusingly at the passerby, a promise of their fate. Lava bubbles exploding in fountains of liquid fire, each seem to release a scream of untold agony of a tortured soul, damned to walk forever with no chance of redemption. Mushrooms glowing with an inner fire add to the confusion of the place, their heads unmoving when looked at, but just in the corner of the eye they seem to turn towards the passerby, following their movement with an unsatiable hunger. Ragged stones tearing at even the toughest souls, wearing them down layer by layer, while ghostly trees stand like gargoyles ready to pounce. Voices drift through the landscape, an argument. Male voices. One weary and exhausted, the other crawling with aggression and hatred.
You thought you killed me. Me! I am the true you!
A grunt of pain.
Shut up, you piece of shit. You're not getting out of here. I'm not going to let you go.
The sound of a body hitting the floor.
I am going to tear you limb from limb. I will find out what you did. Let me in. Let
The sound of an object hitting flesh.
me
Again that sound.
in.
Hatred seeping through every word. Screams of pain echoing through the ruins, amplified by the environment, forever trapped in this realm. The gurgle of fluid audible, mixing with the voice.
I locked them away. All of them. You will never find them. I will kill us before that happens.
The sound of what can only be a punch.
You pathetic worm! You squandered it all these gifts, threw them away. For what? For what?
Desperation has crept into the dark, deep voice. Now it was the other voice laughing.
Cry all you want. You're not getting out.
Quieter repeating. Never getting out. Traces of hysteria audible. She landed in the middle of liquid fire and flames, inhaling the pain, hysteria, agony and screams. She hummed, eyes half-lidded as the misery and terror floated across her skin. Home, she purred, wings flaring around her as she caught her balance. She walked over to the warbird, a twisted smile on her lips. She parted them, letting demons flood out from her breath, riding the black smoke curling from her. They continued the tones and jibes, a chorus of
Pathetic, worthless, little worm.
all around him as they dragged their misery-soaked claws into his flesh.
You are never leaving.
She purred at him if he could discern voices. How the mighty have fallen. She taunted, unleashing yet more of the demons to engulf him with their screamed taunts, ear-piercing and mocking. Volbert jerks his head at the voice. The voice? Was it real? Blinking eyes behind glasses crisscrossed with a series of spiderwebs. Primitive, clearly improvised weapons dripping fresh blood. Who? Taking a step closer towards the woman on unsteady feet, leaving bloody footprints. The voices. Her voice. It was making his flesh crawl. No.
Who the fuck are you?
The voice switching between intonations instantaneously. The weapons held loosely before, gripped tighter now.
A little angel that lost its way.
Taunting with an evil glower towards her wings. It takes a second before the thought is there.
How did you get here?
Or if she got in, then there must be... A dark, oily chuckle fell from her lips at the second voice. I suppose you could call me an angel. After all, not all demons were created. Some fell. She said in a twisted purr at the voice, her hands moving up, a word falling from her lips as half-maggoty crows, decayed and bloody, dripping with filth and ichor, came flooding out from her wings, their plumage as dark as hers. Dozens, then hundreds of the birds roaring out as he tightened his grip on the weapon. You don't remember us, angel boy? She cooed at him. After we went through all the trouble of killing you? She tutted. She twisted her fingers into a pattern, releasing the half-dead crows at him. They would swarm the boy if they were able, trying to block him from her, pecking and scratching, leaving their beaks and claws sometimes in him. Maggots and old blood dripped from their little torn bodies as they beat at him with their wings. Each crow has a voice that mimicked Borbert's, each having something different to say. Worthless, pathetic worm. You are nothing. You will never leave. You never deserved these gifts. You will be here for all eternity, paying every second over day. We are going to feast on your soul and then build it back to feast again. She chuckled as they buffeted him, her eyes pitched, dark and cruel. Do enlighten me on what brought you here to be a plaything of hell, my domain. She purred darkly at the boy. Volbert looks around, slashing at the invisible voices unleashed by her. It's not fear in his face, it's utter and true despair. Go away! He shouted, and it's unclear who he's yelling at. The woman? The voices? The other part of him? Or maybe all of them. Breathing hard, some partly healed wounds reopened from the exertion. Pressing a hand against his forehead, mouth open in a soundless scream, facing her at her words, trying to focus with all his strength. You are... Pictures of a hotel, a road, an entrance to a cave. The birds hitting him like a hammer, pecking and tearing at the exposed flesh. Worms clinging to the fresh wounds, digging, gnawing, devouring. Hands instinctively slashing at the surreal attack.
How dare you!
The attacks on the birds exploding in a fury, breaking and tearing them away from his exposed flesh, stomping their bodies to a bloody mush on the dirty floor, advancing towards her through the fray.
Your domain? Don't make me laugh, little witch.
biting into a rotten bird and spitting the remains out and towards her.
Your little parlor tricks won't help you here. Tell me how you got here and how you plan to get out.
Charging forward, a bulk of the large body carrying through the flock of birds. The blood-covered body a gruesome sight. She gave another chuckle.
Yes, my domain. Care for a demonstration?
She asked the boy as he charged at her through the flock of half-dead birds. As he bit into one of the birds, she closed her eyes, another word leaving her as the blood in them that got into his mouth, if it did, would begin to turn into an acid-like fire burning into his mouth and into his bloodstream if he ingested any.
I can come and go as I please,
she told him in a calm voice. As he advanced further, her lips twisted, a cruel, cold smile full of malice. She let him get closer and closer. As soon as he came within a few inches of her, she gave a loud, blood-curdling scream. If it worked, the floor under them would erupt. Fire, smoke, and the smell of rotten flesh and disease filling the air as a shadowed chasm split into existence next to her side. Inside a shadowy hand, a foot, then a long, half-hidden torso riddled with flies and dripping foul liquid. Rotten flesh seeped off its bones. What skin was left oozed with white mucus. Along the forest-green skin, the nails curved in cruel and even darker green. Then its head emerged as it clawed its way into the flames, a giant faceless void, a morphing mixture of twisted putrid flesh. If one were to look at it directly, they would see the face of the darkest fears of their hearts, what made their heart race and their blood turn to ice. It went bump in the night. Blood and bile leaked from the cracks between its flesh, its body twisted, deforming and reforming amid the black fire. She smiled coldly as the summoned demon, then turned back to the non-Warbird, hands lifting as the newly summoned demon stood in front of her, gnashing its many teeth together in horrible clicking noises. Warbird finally realizes who she is as he gets closer.
The Ayla, the Defiler.
For a moment, his voice, as determined as it was the last time they met in the waste, jabbing the stone knife forwards towards her throat just as the blood turns to acid. Gurgling as smoke rises from his mouth. Black lines forming on his throat, just barely hidden under the scars and tattoos. Attack faltering for a moment, just to continue within the blink of an eye. The fighter smashing the stone tomahawk in the thing's face. His face. Her face. Their faces. Chips flying away from the stone from the force of the impact. Gurgling blood and acid. Words slurred through the burned mouth and throat.
I feel no fear. Try harder.
Close enough to kick towards her midriff.
I want out.
The wounds, so gruesome by now, no normal being would still be standing. Shouldn't even be breathing, yet alone talking. But somehow he was. The knife hand like a piston attacking the bone construct, ripping into it, laughter hellishly distorted.
I have died 1,000 times. Do you think you can do what this place can't?
He had butted the golem's massive chest. She smirked at him.
Our memory is coming back, is it?
She purred at him. The summoned demon didn't flinch as he advanced. its cruelly clawed hands reaching out to try to bat the knife the boy held to the floor, but the boy was a maniac, slicing and hacking at him, so then it would just hold onto its wrist, letting the knife wounds rip into itself, the wounds just closing as the liquefied skin plopped off onto the floor, more taking its place. It gave a chirp sound and a rattle of many teeth inside its face laced void of a face, then drew the boy into a hug. Cold claws wrapping around his arm, digging into his flesh to keep him in place. The crows, or what was left of them after being stomped, some dragging their mostly smashed form along the ground to continue to peck at his legs and feet. Some still clinging from their feet onto his body, crushed and broken wings still flapping at the body and face, cawing their taunts and insults in their warbird-like voices. If a summoned demon managed to touch the boy, its touch would cause boils and pus-filled sores to erupt along his skin, splitting open with disease if it worked. The smell would be putrid and horrible, white pus matching the demon's would seep from the wounds.
You want out?
She purred at the boy, another laugh falling from her lips as she watched him hacking at the demon, then hopefully engulfed in the vice-like hug.
I don't think so. You're too much fun to play with. Unless you can maybe make it worth my while to let you out.
She said with a cold smile.
No, I don't think I can destroy you. Why would I? I'll just let you stay here for eternity and watch you do that all to yourself.
She cooed. Volbert feels the hands grip around his wrist, glue-like pus swarming over his arm. Zyla! A scream of hatred escaping his lips, shaking his head violently. Trying to keep the incessant voices out that are chipping at his sanity. What was left of it, one word at a time.
Loser, pathetic, you worm, you are nothing. Nothing at all. You failed them. You failed everyone that trusted you. You couldn't save anyone. You lost her to the vampire. You failed in your duty.
Pressing forward into the creature, muscle tendons visible where the skin and meat is torn away, reinforced sinew exposed. The diseased slime covering the wounds, sending waves of agony through him, pushing forward to crash the thing into the left-over ruined wall. Raven pulls his body suddenly back, stretching the thing's arm through its hold on his wrist, hacking the hatchet into it. A modern weapon would have cleaved straight through, but the stone weapon only deformed and shattered the bones, the fluid still forming a sickly bridge. Head turning towards her, eyes gleaming with insane hatred even through the damaged glasses.
Leave me here, and I swear I'll find you and eat your heart, even if it takes a millennia.
Instead of a second blow on the sickly bridge of mucus, he throws the hawk at the angel creature.
Get me out of this place, witch!
As the demon was shoved into the ruined wall, she hummed, fingers swirling as the demons just melted into the boy, filling him up with its liquefied skin and bones, the gelatinous mass dripping down his body now and getting into all the wounds and pus-filled boils. As it seeped into him, his mind would be filled with dark whisperings, pulling up his nightmares and personal hell before his eyes. The liquid flesh would seep further into the boy's cuts and gashes, lighting him with dark tendrils that began to shoot out of him like webbing if it worked. the stick tendrils connecting onto the wall and encasing him like a fly trapped onto a putrid inky web of old flesh. Flies, crows, maggots, disease, and blood. She said, tapping her chin as she weaved the disgusting tendrils around and around him, cocooning him in the whispering webs.
See, I can come and go as I please, and I don't have a heart, though you are welcome to try. All I have to do is pop out of here nice as I please, and leave you to have so much fun down here.
She taunted him.
Unless you make a deal, then I'll consider taking you back with me.
Volbert finally screams in unadulated agony as the thing flows into him. It can be seen moving under his skin, bones breaking, crushing organs just to begin regenerating a moment later. A vicious cycle of torment. Shaking his head wildly, smashing his forehead into the wall to get the voices to stop. Only with inhuman effort does he manage to speak.
You can't let him out, Zayla. He would kill them all. He can't get out!
The screams swallowing whatever words he might want to add. Raven roars in anger, trying to free himself from the tendrils wrapping him tighter and tighter. Sometimes managing to even rip a few, maybe the weights of her words sinking into his rage. And slowly he begins to calm, still breathing hard, clenching his fist so hard that the wood handle of the knife begins to creak. The voice is dripping with hatred.
Name your price, witch.
Grinding his teeth.
How much for your guidance out of this place?
There's no doubt he would like to do nothing else more right now than to get his hands around her slender neck. She merely shook her head.
That's more of an incentive, not really a deterrent.
She drawled at Wolbert proper. He grinned, a feral, predatory grin at the balanced hatred in his gaze. She didn't seem to mind, more amused than anything.
First off, we're going to get rid of that annoying voice. I'll keep Volbert chained in your mind, let you take full control. Then you're going to own me. I will set you loose on the world. You will not touch me or mine. You will not mention me or mine. And you will destroy and wreak havoc in this world. You will let me modify your memories so you will not remember me. And I will erase Volbert proper from you. For he is no use to me. You, this side of you, will be bound to me until such a time as I feel you have worked off your debt for letting you go free. So, what do you say, little imp? Eternity here? To be everyone's toy? Or are you going to deal with a few months of servitude for your freedom?
Volbert struggles with all the strength that is left, but to no avail. The injuries disabling his body, his bloodshot eyes showing utter desperation. Blood and pus dripping from his lips. Flicking the knife in his hands, he tries to throw the knife as she's close enough. A last desperate gambit, but with an almost non-existent range of motion and worrying about control of the body with the other him, the knife clattering to the ground harmlessly.
God will judge you for this, Zayla.
The voice spoken cold, promising. Raven looks at her closely, weighting his options. These injuries, they meant nothing to him. for he would just respawn elsewhere. But this was an opportunity, no matter if he had to pretend kissing her feet for a while.
My name is Raven.
He grinned, his rotting lips revealing parts of the jawbone as the acid dissolved him from the inside.
Help me chain Walbert so he won't interfere. Get me out of here and I will be your warrior.
Looking at her with hard eyes of a killer.
Yes, we got a deal, witch.
Zayla, at the almost pathetic toss of the knife, she seemed for the first time to grow angry. Her wings flared as she inched off the ground, floating amidst the flames.
You think you have any power here, little blessed angel corpse? This is my realm!
She hissed at him.
You dare threaten me with your God's name in my domain! This is hell!
She said in a dark, cold voice. The flames would roar around them, the demons erupting from splits and chasms over the floor as they come towards him, to make circles upon circles of twisted creatures, all staring hungrily at him. The thrown stone knife dissolving into nothing but smoke as she looked at it. Her wings flared again, her hands lifted palms up to spread over the screaming, jabbering, and taunting multitude. They descended on the boy with claws and teeth, rending him asunder just as fast as he would put himself together again. The demon dissolved in his skin, exploding every so often, shooting his bits to plaster the walls as the inky tendrils reformed over and over to hold him in place.
It's lovely to meet you, Raven.
She purred at him as she flew closer to the bound bow, clawed fingertips tilting his jaw, or what was left of it, to look at her. Their eyes met, and, if she could, would delve into his mind. It would feel as if everything but them dissipated. The room would fade to a dull roar of white noise. The only thing her all-important and smoldering if she could catch his attention. Then she went about her task, rending the memories to shreds and little pieces of torn paper, then burning them to ash. It would take effort and much time to begin to piece those back. Then she went for Walbert, a dark, crackling laugh of twisted pleasure as she dug her mind's claws into him, binding him in burning chains, gagged and bound, stripped to nothing as she wrapped the coils tighter and tighter around him, binding him and leashing him to Raven. His mind, his motivation, more chain. His will, another chain. His life, another. Purpose, another. His care for them, another. And on it went, leashing every memory, everything of Walbert, bound and chained to Raven and his desires. Then she slowly began to extract herself out of his mind, leaving only the impression that someone had gotten him out of hell. A demon, perhaps? She left only the bound there, an inkling. It would keep him from attacking her and leave him open if she so chose to link her mind to his, but that was it. Then she left, gone in the next instant. A single thread, ghostly and pale, seemed to connect from his chest to a thin, almost paper-cut line on the floor. She left the demons to rend and tear at him. She left him to fight his way to that thin strand. If he could fight them off and make his way to it, he would find himself thrown from this hellscape into the city of Kola proper, right in front of the subway station. But she was gone, as was his memory and his mind. Volbert's screams echoed through the endless darkness, chains rattling, holding him immobile. Raven standing on top of him, a foot pressing down.
Now we are going to have some fun, you and I.
Raven on the outside shook his head, looking around, feeling weightless as invisible bonds break away from him. Freedom, a deep, hateful laugh escaping him as dark strands of hatred, born from despair, born from agony, born from helplessness, coalesce around him. Forming a perverted picture of the warrior Wolbert might once have been. Thick layers of armor encasing him almost completely.
Vengeance will be mine.
The dogs of war have been unleashed.